Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mind Movement Health podcast. I'm your host, Kate Boyle, joining you this week to chat about the missing pillar of health, or what I believe the missing pillar of health is. Now, before we dive in, a quick shout out to our podcast sponsor, Paleo Valley. If you have been looking for some support for your health, then look no further than Paleo Valley. They have a great range of food and products that will help support your health. I myself love their products. I use them just as an added benefit to already support the food and nutrition that I'm already eating. So head on over to our podcast show notes and grab your 15% off with our link. All right. Now, when it comes to this missing pillar of health, I think we have to start and chat about that we often spend thousands of dollars every year on fitness programs, on making sure that our nutrition is dialed in. We track our sleep, we track our movement and count our steps, and we worry about how much protein we're eating and is our gut health good. But what if one of the biggest predictors of how long we live has nothing to do with any of those things? And what if one of the most powerful forms of medicine isn't from a pharmacy, a gym, or in your kitchen, and it's actually found in other people? So today we're talking about something that I honestly believe is becoming one of the biggest health issues of our generation, and that is loneliness. Because despite living in a world where we're more digitally connected than ever with phones and iPads and social media and all of this sort of stuff, we're becoming increasingly disconnected from each other. Our bodies and our brains are paying the price for this. And so that's why I wanted to highlight it this week on the podcast is connection matters, and it matters more than ever. So speaking about today, as we said, we've got things like social media. We can reach out and have a chat with someone. We've got Zoom so that we can stay at home and jump online and do our workplace meetings and things from there. We can text people, we can email. All these online communications are great. They make life very convenient for sure. But studies are showing that people are reporting feeling lonelier than ever, which is really, really sad. I like to sort of think before we had social media and especially phones, when we used to go stand in a line, and I often say this, you might have a chat to the person that was in front of you or behind you while you're waiting in a queue. But you just see people pull out their phones and scroll instead. The same as when you're in a waiting room at the doctor's. You might strike up a conversation with someone in the waiting room. Maybe you'd look at a magazine, but now everyone just pulls their phone out and nobody really chats at all. People used to sit around the dinner table and speak. Now, a lot of the time, people put the TV on, or you see people when you go out at a restaurant with their phones out. There might only be two people, and rather than speaking to each other, they're both looking at their phones. Children are spending more time online than outside. Neighbors often don't even know each other. Gone are the days where you just go, "Hey, can I borrow that cup of sugar?" We order our groceries online. We do self-checkout when we go to the supermarket, so we're not even speaking to the person on the checkout and getting that little bit of conversation. We've removed these sort of hundreds of tiny moments, possible moments throughout the day where we can get connection. And before you may be thinking that these small moments of connection, maybe it's speaking to the supermarket attendant or the receptionist at the doctor's, these types of things when we're ringing them up to book an appointment, you might not think those things are important, but they are, and they do make a difference to our health. Now, one of the biggest reports on loneliness from the US Surgeon General's advisory, which was done in 2023, highlights that nearly 1 in 2 adults report feeling lonely. Social disconnection increases the risk of premature death by about 30%. That's a huge amount. The health impact is comparable to smoking, around 15 cigarettes a day. So being lonely is, in your health standards, comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I've never smoked a day in my life. I'd hate to be lonely that that's what it equates to, because that just sounds horrible to me. And lonely increases our risk of heart disease, strokes, depression, and anxiety. And several large studies are now also showing that it can increase our risk of dementia by 50%. There's higher rates of cognitive decline at an earlier age, and we have reduced brain resilience. One meta-analysis found stronger social engagement appears protective against dementia. And we often think to protect against dementia that we need to be doing puzzles or eating more antioxidants. So make sure you get those colorful foods in your diet. And while these foods and, things are great and definitely can help, one of the strongest things you can do is to stay socially connected. Now, Harvard also did a study on adult development, and it's the longest running study in history, one of the longest running studies. It lasted over 85 years. It found that the biggest predictor of happiness was strong relationships. The biggest predictor of healthy aging was also strong relationships. The biggest predictor of living longer, you guessed it, stronger relationships. It wasn't what your cholesterol was, or how high your income is, or what you're eating for breakfast. It really was the strong relationships. Now, connection gives us belonging and purpose, and this is one of the reasons why it is so crucial to our health. Having a sense of purpose, they have again done lots of studies to show that this is a predictor of health. It helps us to feel seen, understood, allows us to stay in that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest state. We weren't built to live by ourselves and be individual. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. We are a species that thrives off being with others. So connection is really key. And when it comes to connection, physical touch, again, studies show that it can help lower your cortisol levels, so reduce stress levels. It can lower blood pressure. It can improve your immune function, improve your sleep, lower inflammation, and also help lower chronic stress. It helps us improve our longevity, our heart health, and increases our release of oxytocin, which is a feel-good hormone that you get when you hug, you kiss, you hold hands. So that physical touch helps us feel safe, connected, calm, and loved. And these are all the things that your nervous system loves. Hello, breath work, another way to help regulate that nervous system. And if we don't use our breath work, we can use that physical touch. That will also help. Also, when we're having this connection with other people, the conversations we have, that exercises our brain. It challenges our memory, our language, our empathy, problem-solving skills, things like emotional regulation. Even novel experiences and interactions, as I said before, just those interactions with the person down the street or the person in the waiting room, they are all very protective for our brain health as well. So if you have a loved one that maybe is a little bit isolated, or a grandparent, again, that may be living alone, who doesn't see that many people, if you can, give them a call, okay? Go round, give them a hug. Encourage them to join a group. The more connections that they have, the better their health is going to be. And then when we are looking at connection and spirituality, this is that feeling of being part of something bigger. We're not meant to do life alone. Community gives us meaning and joy and gratitude. And when we're connected, life feels richer. So if you are someone that is spiritual in whatever way, connecting with others in that way can be very nourishing as well. Now, we said before that we're losing the idea or the art of connection because of phones, working from home, social media, even cost of living is meaning that more people, to sort of keep up with the cost of living, they're working longer hours. They may be not going out and they don't want to spend money, so they're not going out and meeting up with people for dinner, for drinks, to go to the movies, those types of things. So that can be a little bit isolating as well. And that's where sometimes we have to be a little bit smart around that and think about ways that we can meet up with other people that may not cost money. Maybe that's meeting your friend for a walk in the park. Maybe instead of going out for dinner, you catch up just for a coffee instead. There are lots of things that we can do with others that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to spend a lot of money. And I think, again, sometimes we forget that. And then finally, I want to bring up the blue zones. And I will link back to the blue zones from a previous podcast episode I did about the blue zones, because these are the areas of the world where they have the highest number of centenarians, so people that are living to 100 plus. And again, drawing it back to that connection and community, this is one of the big factors that is enabling them to live to over 100. On top of the blue zones, their lives are really based around that connection and community, sharing meals, faith, or being part of community groups, having a purpose. So many of the people that live in these blue zones are still working into their 80s. That's what they associate their purpose with. They have friendships, integral relationships, and intergenerational relationships. Maybe their grandkids or their great grandkids or their nephews or nieces. Daily connections, so they're not just shopping once a week, they're walking down to the corner stop every day to get those couple of groceries and have that conversation, or they're walking down to the coffee shop to get their espresso and have, again, that connection with others. Their longevity isn't just their diet and their movement, it's the belonging. So if we're ever looking for evidence for the importance of connection, we only have to look to these blue zones. Now, one thing that I did love learning from putting this episode together is that connection doesn't have to be deep friendships every day. It doesn't mean that you have to ring your best friend all the time and that's the only way that it counts as connection. These micro connections with just everyday people that you don't even know improves your well-being. Smiling helps. Talking to the coffee barista. Thanking the checkout worker. Chatting to someone walking your dog. I remember when we got our dog, someone said to us, "Oh, you're going to get to know everybody in the neighborhood because when you have a dog, people will chat to you." And I can tell you it's 100% true. I know so many more people in our neighborhood because if you have a dog and you see someone else that has a dog, you stop and have a chat while the dogs are getting to know each other. Looking someone in the eye. We've stopped the art of that. But that, again, looking at someone to make that connection when you're speaking to them, again, that moment of connection makes a difference. And these tiny interactions, the more that we have, the more they help our nervous system feel safer and calmer because it is telling us that we belong, that we have a community, that we're safe. So, some practical ways that I wanted to share just to help you make some more of these connections and micro connections and add them into your day. Maybe calling someone instead of sending a text, inviting someone to come and do coffee, coming to a Pilates class. I can tell you, every client that I have in my class, we have laughs, so many laughs in our class. And again, that connection with your Pilates instructor or maybe another person in class. I was teaching a class this morning and a client said, "Oh, those ladies, they're so lovely," because she just joined this class as a one-off. And I said, "Oh yeah, they've been coming to the same class for 12 years. They're great friends. They've really formed beautiful friendships." Maybe you could join a walking group or volunteer. Smile more. Say hello to someone else that may be walking their dog. Eat dinner without phones. Or even look at joining us for one of our retreats. One of the reasons that I host our retreats is to help women feel safe in themselves, resetting that nervous system, diving into those things like movement and breath work, and having time and space to just focus on yourself. And then once they're settled in themselves and they're feeling safe, it's making connection with other like-minded women. And I can tell you from going on retreats, it is the perfect way to form friendships and feel like you have a community around you because you're with people that are very similar to you. So definitely have a look and check out our Pilates by the Mekong retreat that's coming up in October, because that is the space that I am creating for these amazing women that are coming along. And a lot of what people say when they come on retreat afterwards, it's not, oh, I love the Pilates. They do say that, don't get me wrong. But they also say, I haven't laughed so hard in so long. Oh, I loved having those conversations. Oh, it's so great now that I feel like I've got these friends. It's that feeling of belonging. That's the magic of retreats. And again, one of the reasons why I love hosting them. So to close up, I think we often think that our health is built with each workout. It's built by going to the gym, by eating healthy, by taking that supplement. But some of the best medicine that we're ever going to experience is sitting around a table of people and laughing. It's going for a walk with your friend. It's sharing a story. It's feeling seen and heard, because we're not designed to do life alone. We're designed to do it with others and to have these connections. So this week, at some point, I want you to make a little time to make these micro connection. I want you to put down your phone, look someone in the eye that maybe you don't usually, start a conversation, call a friend you haven't called in a while, join a Pilates class, or say yes to an invitation that maybe you might usually say no to. Because those small moments of connection might be doing far more for your health than what you ever imagined. All right. Well, that's it for this week on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you'd like any more information about our Pilates by the Mekong retreat, head on over to the podcast show notes. I'll link it up there. Otherwise, have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you again next week on the podcast.